This is WD
FM, the official Walt Disney Family Museum podcast. We're your hosts, Bree Bertolacini, Marketing Manager.
and Chris Mullen, Marketing Assistant at the Walt Disney Family Museum.
We are excited to announce the revamp of our podcast and a new bi-weekly format. The first Wednesday of the month, we'll have our WDFM Museum Musings, where we will be chatting about our upcoming programs and news about the Walt Disney Family Museum. We'll also be inviting employees of the museum to talk about their roles and what they're working on that furthers Walt Disney's legacy.
On the third Wednesday of the month, we will have a longer form deep dive into a film, project, or period of Walt's life featuring exclusive audio from Walt Disney and those who worked with him. In this month's episode, we will be taking a deep dive into Walt Disney's first feature-length animated film, Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs. As part of our podcast revamp, we will also be releasing each episode as a video podcast, as you see before you now, with closed captions available on every video. Visit our YouTube channel at WDF Museum or visit our website show notes posted to our blog for more content.
So stay tuned at the end of the episode for an interview with our Public Programs Manager, Tracie Timmer, as we chat about all the exciting upcoming programs. So let's get started by formally introducing ourselves. As prior listeners remember, my name is Bree. I'm the marketing manager at the museum, and I'm joined by my new co-host, Chris Mullen, marketing assistant. And so we have some intro questions. We're just going to chat for a little bit to kind of help you, the listener, get to know us a little bit better. So, Chris, how long have you been working at the museum?
Well, I started working at the museum back in 2014, so almost 7 years ago now. But I did take some time off in the in-between period, taking 2 different Disney College Program internships, which leads me to a fun fact that connects both of us, that we both did the college program at the same time. My first role was parade audience control on Main Street, USA, keeping guests safe while they're trying to go to a different part of the park or watching the nighttime spectaculars. Bree, you can speak to your role.
Yeah, well, Chris, you got me to apply. I remember when you got accepted into the Disney College program, I had just applied, and it was so much fun. For my college program, I worked at Animal Kingdom on the Kilimanjaro safaris, so I got to, drive a really big truck and, with live animals and give tours about the wonderful African animals that lived in the Sahara in Harambe. So it was a lot of fun.
There you go. Magic Kingdom to Animal Kingdom.
Yes, and back to the Walt Disney Family Museum. So you were a guest experience role when you started. Tell us about your role at the museum now.
Well, now I am the marketing assistant at the Walt Disney Family Museum, and what that entails, besides just being an extra set of hands for anyone around the museum who needs help, I manage the website and external communications for the museum, making sure that our guests have the latest news and notice of upcoming events. I also write and edit copy for the museum, making sure that everything we publish is in the museum's voice.
Well, you also missed a couple of things that you do. One, you're a very integral part of the museum, and I don't want to understate that. But you do manage our blog now. I handed that off to you, so you are controlling the content there. But you also used to write a lot of the blog content. I'm just sitting over here tooting your horn. But you're a wonderful writer and researcher, so I don't want you to underplay your role at the museum.
Thank you. Horn is sufficiently tooted.
Oh, good. Okay. Yeah, well, so a little bit about me. I started at the museum as a volunteer while I was in college at San Francisco State. So I started as a volunteer about 6 years ago. It must have been around the same time you started, Chris. I think the Mary Blair exhibition was open. That's how we track time at the museum, which special exhibition was there.
Sure do.
And I basically bugged my way into getting a marketing internship with the museum and kind of changed my entire, view of what I was passionate about. I ended up changing my whole career and what I was studying in school. And I was like, I just want to work at the Walt Disney Family Museum in this marketing department.
There you go. Dreams achieved.
Yes. So I, after I did my internship, took a break, did the college program, came back, and started in my current role working at the museum. So now at the museum, my work is a little bit twofold. Some days I spend all my days just kind of working on content, digital content for the museum. I manage all of our social channels, our WDFM member magazine, this podcast, and I help produce a lot of the video content that we've developed during our closure. It's been a lot, so if, you haven't tuned in. And then in my evenings, I do do interviews on our Happily Ever After series with Tracie Timmer, who we'll be talking with later. But my other side of my job, what I'm really passionate about, kind of merging my two passions, I do a lot of research and for film crews are kind of pulling together some content for people. And Chris and I did a lot of research for the Walt Disney Studios and World War II exhibition. So I'm sure we'll get into that in a future episode, but we're both really passionate about Disney history and, furthering the legacy of Walt Disney. So this is such a fun thing for us to partner on.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and, kind of with that, at the museum, both you and I have spent a lot of times in the galleries doing tours and such, or just, being a guest. What is your favorite artifact at the museum that you always go to or maybe always make sure to showcase in your tours?
Well, that's a difficult question because obviously the galleries have so many things, so many cool things to see. I love the history of Disney and of animation. Personally, I love seeing the progression of animation technology over time. So an artifact that sticks out to me as a favorite, that one that I always walk by and take a few seconds to admire, is the multiplane camera that we have in Gallery 5. That camera had been in use on animated feature films from 1937, Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs, all the way up to 1989 with The Little Mermaid, before Disney animation went completely digital. And so seeing something that started way back when Walt first started on feature animation all the way to right before I was born is just such a cool little bit of history. Also, the fact that it's one of 3 multiplane cameras left in existence, one of the others being at the Walt Disney Studios in Burbank and at Walt Disney Studios Park in Disneyland Paris, having the other one. So it's just really cool that we have such a specific piece of history that unites so many eras of Disney animation.
You said it spans Disney history, and it really spans multiple galleries of the museum. That's also a really cool thing. You can see it from all the different levels. I love the multiplane camera. For my favorite artifact, one that I always try to gravitate towards artifacts in the museum that really illustrate what Walt Disney was as a man. I never got to meet him. We have so many firsthand interviews from his family, Diane Disney Miller, who co-founded the museum, and those who worked with him and knew him. There's a lot of personal artifacts that were from him. And the things that I really love, aside from the miniatures, that's a close second, but I really like one of Walt's, it's like a trinket box. I'll throw some photos up if you're watching the video podcast. It's a trinket box in our last gallery, and it also, part of this object is also featured in another gallery, so it's also one of those fun little trivia moments. But the box has drawings from his grandkids and just little trinkets that he had saved over the years that I just find really interesting. There's cigars from the birth of his grandson, Walter Miller, and something that his daughter actually didn't even know, Diane, didn't know existed. In the box there was a compartment that opens up, and it had a bag full of all of the treasures that Walt Disney had saved from his time during World War I when he was in France. So it's just a really great piece, an artifact. Those trinkets are located in Gallery 1, so you can see those trinkets. There's a little story that ties the trinket box in Gallery 9 together. So it's just, I just really like this kind of insight, this intimate insight into what Walt Disney really, saved and cherished in his life.
Bree, I totally agree. Just the way that our galleries can represent not just Walt as an executive, not just as a creative person, but as a human being who had interests and obviously had need for a box such as this to hold his little items. So I definitely agree with the charming trinket boxes being a highlight of the galleries.
My only quibble is that the box display is pretty high, and I'm short, and so I always have to put my phone at the top of the box to get a photo if I really want a good look at what's inside the box. Anytime I would be wearing heels at work, I would make sure to go and look at it because it was a rare moment and I couldn't really see what's inside the box. So,
well, let me know the next time that we can be in the museum. Let me know, as I am very tall and can get that photo for you.
Well, for our last question, I just kind of get to know what our Disney tastes are. What are your favorite Disney films? I always like to, break them up. So what's your favorite Walt era film, post-Walt era film, and then, for fun, Pixar film?
It's such a difficult question to answer. My list changes all the time. But I think at this point I would say my favorite Walt era film is Sleeping Beauty. I just love Ivan Earl's landscapes. It's just such a beautiful film. My favorite post-Walt film is Mulan. That one was very special to me. I had one of my earliest memories of going to a movie theater. Of course, this is dating me now, but one of my earliest memories of going to a movie theater was to see Mulan. And it was just a really special memory and started me off on my lifelong Disney-loving journey. So Mulan is my favorite post-Walt Walt Disney Animation Studios feature film. And then for fun, Pixar, I would have to say Monsters, Inc. That also came out at a time I had the Sully Blue VHS tape, wore it out. I don't even know if it works anymore just because of how much I used it. But I just love how that movie builds such an environment, such a world. You really feel like you're in Monstropolis. But what about you, Brie? What are your favorite Walt era Disney animated features, post-Walt, and Pixar?
Yeah, it's a tough question. You have such great picks. I won't pick the same ones. My favorite Walt era film is 101 Dalmatians. I just love how unique the style is. It's very different, and Cruella is just such an iconic villain. So my favorite post-Walt era film, kind of surprising, it's Meet the Robinsons. It's not a super popular film, but it blends together some of my favorite things. I grew up watching Back to the Future on repeat, so it mixes, time travel, meeting your parents, and a Walt quote. It's centered around this Walt quote, "Keep moving forward," which I'm such a sucker for. And then my favorite Pixar film is Inside Out. There's so much tying that movie, and there's so many Easter eggs for the Walt Disney Family Museum. And I just remember watching that film. I was an intern at the museum at the time, and I was like, these people get what, they appreciate the museum as much as I do. And there was a dedication to Diane Disney Miller and Ron Miller. And I was like, oh, they love it as much as we do. And, we've gotten to chat with Pete Docter and Jonas Rivera about their time researching and developing the story at the museum. And you and I used to work in the 122 Riley building, which was the Easter egg in the film. So the character's name was Riley. So that one will always hold a special place in my heart.
Yeah, and that one in particular, Inside Out, came out very near to when we did our college program together, and it was really emotionally resonant to me, making such a big move across the country as Riley did, even though I was doing it in the opposite direction. That really stuck out to me. It was definitely a good time.
Yeah, such amazing films. I mean, we could probably go on. And in the main episodes of the podcast, we're going to take a deep dive into the Walt era films a little bit more. So you'll hear us gab some more about some of the amazing Disney films. But I think we're ready to jump right into some museum updates. So the museum is still closed. So while the state of California has lifted the mandatory stay-at-home order, the museum is still closed due to San Francisco's county purple tier status. So here's a quote from our executive director, Kirsten Komorowski. Quote, We continue to remain deeply committed to providing a safe and healthy environment for our visitors and staff. I am grateful for the generous support that we have received from our community, and I look forward to welcoming you back to the museum when we are permitted to reopen." End quote.
Another update for you: even though our museum might be closed, our web store is not. Our web store is still open and fulfilling orders. Visit waltdisney.org/store for more, including a brand new collection for our upcoming special exhibition, The Walt Disney Studios and World War II. There's lots of new merchandise branded with our special museum-exclusive Donald Duck insignia, and some with the Fifinella insignia that was created by Roald Dahl and the Walt Disney Studios and used by the Women's Air Force pilots. Bree, do you have any particular favorite merchandise that's currently available in our web store?
Yes, we have so many great items in our web store, more are being added, but I always love the issues of the e-ticket magazine. There's a great offer of variety of Disney attraction topics, so there's a lot of interviews with Imagineers and insiders and so much more. Such a wonderful and kind of unique object that you can collect.
Love the e-ticket. Personally, whenever I've visited the store in person, I'm always drawn to the wall of books. The museum store has books covering every facet of Walt's life and beyond, books for every age group, biographies on Disney legends, you name it. A lot have already been added to the web store and more are on the way. Our next Happily Ever After Hours guest on Friday, February 5th, be sure to tune in to Happily Ever After Hours with Academy Award nominated screenwriter Tab Murphy. His work includes writing Walt Disney Animation Studios' The Hunchback of Notre Dame, Tarzan, Atlantis, The Lost Empire, one that's particularly close to my heart, and Brother Bear.
Yeah, these Happily Ever After Hours are so fun to put on, and they are free to sign up. Registration is required, so the program is presented on Zoom, and the best part about tuning in live is the participation that you're able to have. You get to submit questions to the speaker, and I do a little bit of a more formatted interview portion at the beginning, and then the second half of the program is all audience Q&A. So it's always a fun time seeing everyone in the chat.
Yeah, and we have guests ranging not only in animation like our current upcoming guests, but from Imagineering and all other avenues of Disney business and beyond. A lot of people that grew up watching Disney films or visiting Disney parks and were so inspired by the entertainment that Walt and his team put together that they went off into their own creative path, and now they have stories and lessons to share with our audiences. So we're always so grateful to our guests for coming onto our program, and we're really excited to put those on for you. And if you don't sign up in time, no worries. Our programs of the Happily Ever After Hours variety will be replayed on our Facebook and YouTube channel for 48 hours. If you're a member, you can access all of our Happily Ever After Hours and select programs in our members-only Vimeo channel.
Yeah, and kind of moving forward on our virtual talks, these are a little bit different. They are paid. So on Wednesday, February 10th, join us for the virtual talk, the Uncovering Miracle of the White Stallions. So that program is $5 for members and $8 for non-members. And that program is really unique. It's a part of our World War II series. You might recall that Walt Disney had created the 1963 film Miracle of the White Stallions, and it was in the midst of World War II, where a group of American soldiers captured a German spy and discovered a plot to create a master race of horses by stealing a band of Lipizzaner white stallions. And you can join Elizabeth Letts, author of the book The Perfect Horse, and the newly announced special guest, Carruthers, wife of the film's screenwriter A.J. Carruthers, as they take a deep dive into the history of the story and also into Walt's fascination with the spellbinding adventure.
I'll admit, Brie, I have not watched the film Miracle of the White Stallions, but this description alone sells me on watching, on reading about it. It sounds like a real winner. Our virtual talks cover such a wide range of topics. The next one is going to be a virtual talk called Disney Glitz and Glamour with Besame Cosmetics co-founder and cosmetics historian Gabriela Hernandez on Friday, February 12th at 4:30 p.m. Pacific Time. This program is free for members and $5 for non-members. Celebrate Galentine's or Valentine's Day with a glamorous presentation and makeup tutorial with Besame Cosmetics founder and makeup historian Gabriela Hernandez. Learn about the extensive research behind Besame's exclusive Disney limited edition collections, including Disney Snow White, the 1937 collection, Mickey Mouse, Disney Sleeping Beauty, the 1959 collection, and the recently released Disney Mary Poppins collection. Be sure to visit our store to purchase Disney Besame products featured in the presentation. And after the Besame Cosmetics program, celebrate with our special events team for Sips and Stories Celebrating Love, also Friday, February 12th at 6 p.m.
I'm sure you'll probably get a lot out of the Besame Cosmetics program. I think it'll be a lot of fun kind of researching how people, if you're not really into makeup, like maybe Chris isn't, but kind of how, companies are looking at history and adapting that into products that we all can love and enjoy and have, historical significance. So I think that'll be really fun. So for our Sips and Stories Celebrating Love, if you do purchase a ticket to the Sips and Stories, you do get free access, a free ticket to our Besame Cosmetics Glitz and Glamour program. So the Sips and Stories, it's a live virtual event highlighting Disney romances, including the Twitter-padded tales of three iconic couples, Mickey and Minnie Mouse, Mark and Alice Davis, and Walt and Lily Disney. So in addition, this is a really unique special program. It's presented by our special events team. You'll learn how to make 3 delicious cocktails from our special guest, Oakland mixologist and whiskey chaser mobile bar owner, Chad Davis. So you'll, have some moments where you'll get to make some fun and unique cocktails.
And the day after the Besame Cosmetics and Sips and Stories programs, we have a virtual storytime program, which is going to be great for the whole family. It's Saturday, February 13th at 11 a.m. Pacific Time. Join us with your little ones for a virtual storytime with author Natasha Yim, where she will read her new book, Mulan's Lunar New Year, and answer some questions afterwards. In this special presentation, learn about Mulan's family traditions and the history behind the festive annual celebration. The program is free for all. Registration is required since there will not be a replay available for this program afterwards, so be sure to register for that one. Attendees can purchase Mulan's Lunar New Year from the museum's web store. All copies will come with a signed book plate from the author.
This virtual story time sounds like so much fun, and I've always really enjoyed listening to these virtual story times, even though I don't have any little ones. They're really great to kind of, if you're interested in maybe a new career path, in this particular story time, we're speaking with author Natasha Yim. So if you're interested in learning more about how to be a children's book author, this would be a really great resource for you. The audience Q&A is always so full of such amazing career advice, not just for, catered to the little ones, but it's always a good time. Visit our website for a full list of our show notes with links to sign up for all the talks featured today. And stay tuned, because when we return, we will have an interview with Public Programs Manager Tracie Timmer.
Welcome to the show, Public Programs Manager Tracie Timmer. To get started, when did you start at the Walt Disney Family Museum, and how long have you been in your role in public programs?
Sure. I started 5.5 years ago, and I came in as a associate, one of the red sweaters that tours the museum and makes sure that everything's going okay and sells tickets and all of that. And then after about 1.5 years, I moved into the public programs coordinator role. So I've been in public programs for about 4 years now, and I've kind of moved my way up since then.
What is your role of a public programs manager? What does that consist of?
So the essence of my job is that I'm planning and implementing public programs. So we're coming up with ideas for programs that we think would appeal to our audience of Disney fans. And in the past few years, we've been able to expand that a lot more. We used to be kind of held to programs about Walt's time, but we are now able to expand into the many universes of Disney. So Marvel, Lucasfilm, things like that we can touch on as well. So really my day-to-day is planning with our public programs assistant, Caitlin, and the wonderful marketing team, upcoming programs and ideas that we have. They might be panels that are larger, they might be presentations, or they might be our Happily Ever After hours. And I also manage our new museum app. So a lot of the time I'm working on updating that and making sure it's relevant and with the times and adding new features and whatnot. And we're also in charge of our community days, which are our large-scale free community events, things like the Big Draw and Walt's birthday. And those typically require a lot of planning because they usually take place over a day or sometimes multiple days, and include a multitude of programs. So they usually need to be scheduled a bit further in advance and take a bit more work than just our normal monthly programs.
For sure. And going back to what you were saying about how programs used to be very specifically Walt era and have since expanded in topic and scope, what have been some of your favorite programs to put on?
I think some of my favorite programs have been with people that I have idolized since, childhood. I'm an artist and I've always loved Disney. So there are certain people that I just grew up with who seemed larger than life, celebrities to me. So people like Glenn Keane, when he did his program during his exhibition here about two or 3 years ago, he came with the tilt brush, the VR headset where you can paint in VR, and he did a live painting of Ariel, who's my favorite character, and did it along to the music of Part of Your World, and I was like tearing up the whole time. It was just like all of my dreams come true in one program. So things like that, with people like Brad Bird and Pete Docter, like people that I just never in my dreams could believe that I'd be working with them. Those are some of my favorite programs, just people that I really look up to as artists and filmmakers. It's just so inspiring to be able to work with them and be around them.
Yeah, you definitely have a really cool job. You get to email all the nitty-gritty stuff, and I remember I used to go to a lot of the programs. I used to work on the weekends, come to a lot of the public programs, and I'm like, they get to just work with them and be backstage behind the curtain, and get to know them in a little bit more of a working relationship, which I think is just a really cool perk of your job.
Definitely.
And kind of going into now this last year when the museum closed in March of 2020, there's been a huge shift in public programs altogether. What were some of the biggest challenges you faced when rethinking how to continue to present these programs?
I think the first challenge was just really figuring out how we were going to reach our existing audience, what technology and what tools are out there that would allow us to easily reach these people that we can't see in person anymore, that were, coming to our programs twice a month generally in our theater. How would we reach those people? And, at the time, none of us were really familiar with things like Zoom or Google Meets or anything like that. We weren't really using it consistently, but we knew it existed. So I think probably the biggest challenge was figuring out that technology, and I'm still figuring it out every day. It presents a new challenge. And, there's updates to keep up with and whatnot. But really, I think the challenge was figuring out how to use that technology to reach our audience and hopefully make it easy or somewhat easy for them to use it too. And also for our speakers, that's another challenge is most of our speakers hadn't used Zoom before either. So troubleshooting with them and figuring out the way to make the transition as smooth as possible for all parties involved. And that's something it's still a challenge. We still have to work on it, and we're figuring it out every day.
Totally. And a lot of those speakers that you're talking about have come on via the super successful Happily Ever After Hours virtual program. Tell us a little bit about what the most exciting aspect of putting that program on.
For me, it's again kind of similar to to our in-person events. It's really just getting to work with these amazing people. Every single one of the guests that we've had have been so gracious and giving of their time and so willing to impart their knowledge to 500 people that join into our Zoom calls, and it's just such a treat to get to work with them and see how they are also adjusting to this new world that we're living in. And everyone's been just so willing to jump on board and join in with this, fairly new platform and fairly new technology that none of us are super comfortable with per se. So just the opportunity to reach speakers that we may not have reached otherwise. We have speakers that we've worked with in Europe, like Tom Moore from Cartoon Saloon. We would have never been able to get him for an in-person event. We can't fly people out from Europe generally. So it's really given us the freedom to access speakers that we couldn't necessarily bring in person in non-COVID times.
Yeah, and I really think that it was our first kind of virtual foray into a public program, our Happily Ever After series, and we've been able to reach audiences all over the world. And our little theater only held 114 people. And the fact that we've been able to reach so many people that we just really wouldn't have been able to, that people who can't visit the museum don't have the means, it's been really wonderful.
Yeah, I think that's been one of the biggest benefits that we, didn't really anticipate going into this new era was how many more people we've been able to reach than we could reach before. People are fairly limited when it comes to our programs by distance. If you live, more than an hour or two away, you're probably not going to fly out to San Francisco for an hour-long program. But we've had so many people reach out to us and say how thrilled they are that they have gotten to access these programs that they never could go to before because they live in Utah or Brazil, or we get people from all over. People say they've always wanted to come to the museum and haven't been able to because they live far away, and they're able to access our content and with our virtual tours and whatnot, our museum as well. So it's really, despite these being very difficult times, it's really opened our doors to so many more people than we accessed previously.
Totally. And with all of the different kinds of events that we've been able to put on, your team in particular, you've put on Happily Ever After Hours programs, virtual talks, virtual story times. For those who might not have gone to every single type of event we've put on, could you talk a little bit about the differences between Happily Ever After Hours, virtual talks, and virtual story times?
Sure. So our Happily Ever After Hours are generally free events, and they're generally purely Q&A. So we always start out with moderated questions from the lovely Bree, and those are questions that we come up with on staff just to kind of get the conversation started, keep the questions on track, and really hit on some points that we've discussed previously with our speakers that they know they for sure want to talk about and cover. And then for the second half, that leads us into our audience Q&A, where our audience members can submit questions through the Q&A section of the Zoom chat and get a chance to somewhat interact with the speakers themselves. So those are purely Q&A. There's usually not a presentation aspect to it. Our virtual programs are usually programs that our speakers have put together a presentation of some kind that goes through usually their life and their career. It often has images of their work or film clips, things like that. It usually requires a fair amount of work on our speakers' part. And we do always incorporate a Q&A at the end, but it's really more presentation based. So those are our virtual programs. And then our Storytime events is a speaker who either wrote or illustrated a children's book, and they come on, usually read their children's book to an audience of generally younger people, but also adults too. And then at the end, we open it up to audience Q&A. Those programs are usually a little bit shorter. Kids tend to have a little bit shorter attention spans. So those ones are really more kid-focused.
Yeah, and I think it's been really great that we've been able to adapt some of the types of programs that we used to have in person and bring them to the virtual space. Is there something that you've learned, once the museum does reopen and we do resume in-person programs, is there something that we will continue to do during that time?
I mean, I think we will probably continue with Happily Ever After Hours into the future, just because of this like I was saying, how many people were able to access that can't access the museum otherwise. So I do think that's something we want to continue even after the museum reopens, which will hopefully be soon.
Totally. And something I love about Happily Ever After Hours as well is that some of these speakers, for whatever reason, aren't able to come to San Francisco to give a full in-person talk. So this really expands our field of people with such great stories and connections to Walt, or connections to people who were inspired by Walt, that we can share those stories for more folks. So that's what I've always loved about Happily Ever After Hours.
And a big shout out to Don Hahn, who has really been, he's almost like the president of our Happily Ever After Hours, like the silent, secret president that has just been helping us to connect, for the last couple months. Well, now the last year, he's connected us with so many wonderful people that he's worked with. So if you go back through some of our catalog, if you're a member, and look at some of the past programs, you'll notice there's a lot of Beauty and the Beast people.
Oh, yeah. Don Hahn is the real MVP of Happily Ever After Hours. We couldn't have done it without him.
And had a very great Happily Ever After Hours himself.
Yes, he was I think he was our third or fourth guest. Yeah. So he started it out, and he's just been consistently connecting us with amazing speakers that, we couldn't have accessed without him. So we're so appreciative of him and everything he's done for the museum.
Very true. And so with a look ahead now, we talked a little bit about our upcoming programs for the month of February. What is a program that you are particularly excited to present?
I mean, I'm excited for all of them, but one of them that I think is particularly unique is our Miracle of the White Stallions program with author Elizabeth Letts coming up. And on a personal note, I grew up riding horses. I love horses. I've always been like a horse girl. And there's a fair amount of horse connections with Walt, because Walt loved horses. He was big into polo, as we all know. But we've never had a horse-related program. There's not that many tie-ins to create a whole program around it, like in the Disney canon. But there is this little film called Miracle of the White Stallions that has this really fascinating history that ties into World War II, which is our now delayed special exhibition. So we saw an opportunity to present this kind of unique horse program, and I know there's a fair amount of people out there who are like me who love Disney and horses, and we recently got the opportunity to add a second speaker to that event that we're really excited about, which is Carruthers, and she is the wife of A.J. Carruthers, who was the screenwriter on Miracle of the White Stallions and knew Walt very well. He's featured a lot throughout our museum and videos as you walk through the galleries and whatnot, because he had a fairly close working relationship with Walt. So it'll be so wonderful to hear her perspective, to hear Elizabeth's perspective as more of like a historian who wrote this book about the actual event around the miracle of the White Stallions, and then hear kind of the Disney film aspect from Carol. So we're very excited about that one.
As our last question, we're going to try to ask this of every employee that we interview going forward. But going back to the museum, and you've worked there for many years, what is one of your favorite artifacts that you always kind of go to or always like to point out to people when walking through our galleries?
I think my favorite, I don't know if I can pick just one, but my favorite group of artifacts, I'll say, is anything by either Mary Blair or Ivan Earle. So we have a couple pieces in Gallery 7, I think by both of them. And those are always my favorite. I'm always just like staring through the glass and trying to see the brushstrokes, because they're my two favorite artists of all time. So anything by them, it's just like, I can't believe I'm in such close proximity to these amazing pieces of art.
And if you wanted to take a look back on a very old article, Tracie, I remember you wrote a wonderful article about Mary Blair and some of the pieces in our gallery. So it's kind of a fun little throwback to your wonderful
Forgot
writing.
about that. It's a long time ago. I'm glad you remember.
I used to just be hounding all of our guest associates. Do you want to write something, please?
That's how you roped me into all this.
Well, thank you so much, Tracie, for joining us and talking about some of the wonderful things that you're doing for our virtual public programs. And we can't wait to get back to some in-person programming with you. And, being able to go back into the museum again. I miss all your lovely
Hopefully
faces.
soon. I know. Me too. So I'll get vaccinated and get back soon.
Yep. All right. Well, thank you so much, and we'll see you soon.
All right. Thanks, everyone.
Thanks for tuning in to WDFM, the official Walt Disney Family Museum podcast. Subscribe wherever you get your podcasts. Email us questions or comments at podcast@wdfmuseum.org.
Follow us on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter at WDF Museum for all the latest updates. Signing off for now.
Keep moving forward.
Bye.
Bye.